you named and you said that you feel like the stronger negative voices in your life are actually your peers.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like a lot of your peers would agree that that's true, or do you feel like they perceive that it's adults and it's people in authority?
I mean, sometimes it's like the adults who kind of talk down to people my age, or at least the ones in my life, are the ones that are kind of big and far away. So not like people I've met personally, just, the random people on the internet who are like, the kids are stupid. And I'm like, yeah, we kind of are, but also we haven't graduated high school yet.
Sure.
Legitimate reason, yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I know I'm not the greatest at decision making, but also I am barely old enough to work at McDonald's. So there's that. And so I think most, at least from the people around me, I think they would agree that the strongest negative voices kind of come from their peers in various forms. So, because that's the thing, peer pressure in high school, the opinions of people around you, at least they matter more at this stage of life.
And you kind of see that in the very beginning of Encanto,
Yeah.
when the three little kids are like, well, what's your superpower? What's yours? And they won't leave her alone
Well, also,
until she answers the question.
well, it's also like Mirabelle's relationship with Isabella specifically, because I mean, her relationship with, they're, in terms of the grandchildren, their relationship is the one we see the most of. That and Mirabelle's relationship with Luisa, but just the idea of Mirabelle, who can't seem to do anything right, and her gift hasn't really fully understood or hasn't made itself known yet in comparison to Isabella, who's like the perfect one, and that relationship between Isabella trying to be, the perfect child, and that means she has to push Mirabelle out of the way, and also that voice of like her peer, being one of the strong negative voices in her life.
Well, and then you also have Dolores, who is just hears all and is literally silenced through most of that movie, right? Because she hears Bruno the entire time, right? She's like, I know he was here the whole time. And she even expresses pity for Bruno when they're singing the We Don't Talk About Bruno song, and how bad she feels for him. But she could have been a positive influence because she knows all, because she hears all. But she's like, yeah, no, but I'm just, and I think one of the last lines she says in the movie is, would you please notice me? Right?
Yeah.
So even because all they want to know is what she's heard, not what she thinks.
Yeah.
Right. And so and she could have been something so different.
Well, I think this partially is because it's like her place in the family, not only because of her gift, but also if you read the internet things, you would know that Dolores was born about a couple months after Isabella. So, Isabella was the first like perfect child, and Dolores was just kind of there. And so her just kind of always being the one who's just kind of there throughout her entire life, she's kind of learned to just not say things or not share things until, towards the end of the movie, when things are very hectic in the family. Just that.
Yeah. How do you both think we as a family in Christ elevate people's gifts without platforming and idolizing people's gifts? What do you think that looks like?
Well, I mean, it's family, right? You're trying, the idea, if you read the book of Acts, is community, right? Bringing people together. You have to be careful not to idolize, because, even Paul was like, hey, don't worship me. I'm not one of these Greek gods. I am just literally the messenger for Jesus, and trying to keep things in perspective, because they were healing people and doing all these wonderful things, and it made people have a false sense of who they were relative to who they actually were and what their message was. So I think, number one, staying on message, right? This is about Jesus. This is not about my ability to sing or preach or teach or whatever it is that we're glorifying at the time. So I think there's a way of establishing community and being in community where you can support people, support their gifts, recognize their gifts, encourage them, but keeping Jesus first, because you know, there's been a great many people who have gone onto American Idol who sang in the church, and boy, it's embarrassing. You know, and your heart goes out to them because they have been fed into, oh, your gift, it's your gift, it's your gift, and it's not your God, your God. And you know, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away sometimes. And you know, so people, like I was saying earlier, when you believe that when you condition yourself to believe that your whole identity is in what it is you do, it is very unhealthy. Versus having an identity grounded in God, which was kind of interesting in Encanto, because you see the priest. You know, he's bald. But...
Another interesting thing, if you're keeping it in the frame of Encanto, is for most of the family, with like the exception of Isabella, their gifts that they use are used for the community and to make their family proud. And so like having that mindset of what you do is not for yourself, it's for God, or in case of the movie, for their family and for their community, is a way that people themselves can remain humble with their gifts, and helps remind the community as a whole that this is not about the person who's doing it, the action. It's like why the action or why the gift is being used.
And we just want to make sure to have good mental health and balance with that, because if we remember from Luisa's, you know, Under Pressure song, just the taking the burden of, if I'm not strong enough, I'm going to let everybody, literally the whole world down, instead of realizing that, you know, we have Jesus, we have the Holy Spirit, we have help, we have support. We're not doing this alone. Which was why I'm like, okay, like the priest was one of the people who like led the crowd to the, I'm like, where were you ministering this whole movie, dude? Were you so mad that Bruno told you you're going to lose your hair that you're like, forget it, man,
he's
I'm
salty.
out.
Yeah.
He's like, but
priests are people too.
Huh?
Priests are people
too. Yes, they are. And he's really devastated about his hair loss.
So how do you think we... Ooh, man. Sorry, I got to put this question together. I love what you both shared, because I think, again, working with high schoolers and knowing people like Layla and knowing people like you, Linda, I think I'm observing that, you know, I had a grandfather who... his small business that he owned was his life, to the point that it literally killed him. Like, destroyed his health, made him super stressed. You know, he died very early, and it was because he would work long hours. It was just, there was this, like you said, that pressure that's just like there. On one level, I've learned to have more compassion for him, just in how, for me, myself, I've seen even, you know, this whole podcast thing. I'm like, everybody needs to know this, or like everybody. And there's a level where it's like, yeah, this is cool. Like, this is awesome that we get to have a discussion about a movie and bring God into it and all this stuff. But like, that pressure has taken time for me to see that is not God's pressure.
Right.
And to dig through where that comes from. So what do you both feel like? And maybe I'll start with you, Layla, because I think I see that a lot in the high schoolers right now. Like, we talk a lot about that in my philosophy classes, is where does the definition of success come from? Or like, where does that, you know, who owns it in your life? So if you were to answer that, who do you think owns it? And maybe who have you struggled to let own it at different parts of your life?
In terms of success, I'm a person who struggles a lot with perfectionism. Like right now I am fighting to get all my B's to A's, which if you look at like final exam calculators, it's like, in order for me to, okay, Mom,
I'm not listening.
No, Mom, I'm talking to you.
Oh,
okay.
Hi, I'm listening now.
In order for me to get a B- in Spanish, I have to get like a 92 on my exam. I love you, but I don't know if that's possible.
That's fine.
So there's that. Like, how little getting high grades on your exams changes your grade is frustrating. But it's just this like idea of you can at least how I function as a person and the people around me, it's like you can always be doing, it's this idea that you can better, and that like you need either perfect grades or almost perfect grades. At least that's because high school, that's the big thing that matters right now is, you know, trying to get good grades, do well in all these extracurriculars. She knows because she has to drive me that I do too much. And just trying to, like, in terms of like your classes and your teachers, just trying to like be everything or like be the perfect student to everyone, which in some cases is not really possible. And as I am moving through high school, I am trying to learn that that is not possible and that I can't be perfect at everything. And it's still a very hard thing to walk out of because, like, you know, you want to be able to, like, come home with really good grades. And, I mean, my grades are good, but they could always be better, and that's the thing. It's like, I have an A in all but 3 of my classes, but those 3 classes are like taking over my life right now.
The louder voice, right?
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. You have all these things you're doing really, really well, but
yeah,
oh, there's these 3. Like,
you know, it's like, and then so like it's like those 3 classes are, oh, I'm not spending as much time as I could on like this one extracurricular. Like I'm in Model UN and I'm struggling to write my position paper right now. And I'm like, I really need to do that. But also, it's finals week, and I still have robotics for about 9, 12 hours this week. And I still have all these other things to do. And I have to be here on Saturday and there on Sunday. And so it's like, when it comes to success, I think, at least, it's always... It really depends on the person, but for me specifically, I am trying to move from finding all my success in how well I do academically and how well I do extracurricular wise, but when that's kind of deeply ingrained into your brain, it's really hard to turn from because it's like okay, we're going back to the movie Isabella's problem of like having to try to be perfect her whole life. And I'm not struggling in the way she is with like being socially perfect because like I am who I am, but as long as my grades are good.
yeah.
And
sure.
so it's kind of that idea of, and also because at least in the family in Encanto, they're all being compared to each other where I'm an only child. So I'm only really compared to myself. I'm like, so it's like, I know I can do better because I have done better. And that's the hard part for me specifically. Would you like to speak now, Mom?
No, you're doing great. Yeah. So that's a trait she gets from her dad because I am not a perfectionist. So, which is, you know, they have those bonding sessions. For me, success is just, it varies, you know, depending on what stage of life you are, what your priority is. You know, success when I was her age was very different than what it is now. And, you know, obviously at every stage in between, do you have a successful marriage? Are you a successful parent? I'm still working on being a successful daughter because now, you know, my parents are in their 80s and that's a whole different way of relating to these humans, who put you on the planet. And so, and then success in work. And so again, it's in part, you know, where's your identity? Is it in Christ? Is it grounded? Do you find comfort and peace in it, or are you burdened and stressed by it? Right. In high school, it's very easy to be burdened, stressed, and overwhelmed, right? Because especially nowadays, they have so much more going on. And I did extracurriculars, but I didn't even have half the options she has, right, in extracurriculars. And she had one teacher who I think we both hid from in the store because we're like, oh no, I don't want work as a parent. And I'm like,
Sure.
I was like, Layla, there's so and so. She's like, hide, and we just
It's just
it was traumatizing.
her
for both of
class
us.
was hard, but one thing I do appreciate is she was right about one thing. Her class did prepare you for the workload of high school.
That's
It's
true.
like I have learned to be stressed through her class. So I was at least partially prepared, but also going back to what you were saying, in terms of like success looks different at different stages of life. Obviously, you've gone through more. You've gone through more.
Thanks for pointing that out.
I love. You've passed high school, and right
Yes, I
now
have.
high school is my entire world because it's where I spend the majority of my time. Practically live at school. Remember that one Monday ended up spending 14 hours.
14 hours. 7 to
7 to 9.
7 to 9.
That is
yeah.
14 hours because I had jazz in the morning, then school, then concert, then robotics. But it's this like, because sometimes it's like looking up to the people in your life. Because I mean, like, I look at you and I look at Dad. You've finished your doctorate. Dad's working on his, and like the success that my parents have had, and trying to like lay the groundwork to get that have to happen later, to lay that groundwork now, and thinking, okay, I have to do like these 2 million things in order to get into like these possible colleges, to get this possible degree, to get this possible career, to like get to that place in life and to do things. And also like looking at some of my friends, because I have friends who are smarter than me, a lot smarter than me, and it's like, okay, look, I might be taking this AP, but they're taking this other AP, and they're like
AP plus.
and it's like, especially my friends who are good at math, because I struggled with math for a very long time, and I'm like, especially because like I'm on a robotics team, but I don't have much of a STEM brain, and I'm like, and you feel like you should, because you're surrounded by all these people who know so much about engineering, and it's just like that general pressure to be smarter in various aspects and to do better in all these things, and trying to find like, okay, which APs am I taking next year?